You are now listening to The Forefront Radio, where we discuss history, the Bible, the history of the Israelites, science, and other matters. Bring it out. The history of the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans as it relates to the Bible. Who were you prior to slavery? Who were you prior to colonization? These answers and more can be seen and heard as you listen to The Forefront Radio.
Thank you for tuning into the Forefront Radio. I'm your host, Afiel Levi Israel. Now, if you're interested in helping us promote our brand, please feel free to donate to our Cash App. Our Cash App is $Afiel Levi. That's APHIELLEVI. And that'll go directly to the Forefront Radio so we can produce more incredible shows for you to listen to. Now, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download this free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you.
We have to understand something. How can you talk about freedom and justice for all when you were brought under the banner of servitude? How can you talk about freedom and justice for all when you were brought in shackles and chains with yokes about your neck? The Bible says that the children of Israel would be scattered into all nations under the banner of slavery. This was a global slave trade. Luke chapter 21, verse 21 through 24 says you're going to fall by the edge of the sword and you're going to be led away captive into all nations. So the question for the critical thinker is this. Who did that happen to? Did that happen to the Chinese? No. Did that happen to the Arab? No. Did that happen to the European? No. Did that happen to the people that call themselves Jewish? No. What race of mankind on the earth was taken into captivity into all nations? You think this global slave trade would be not documented in the greatest history book known to mankind? You're looking at the Bible and you don't realize that it's talking about you. Yes, you. The people that are impacted by slavery and colonialism. The people that were taken to America, taken to the Caribbean islands, taken to France, Portugal, taken to Spain as slaves. The Bible says that the gospel of the Jesus Christ that we know of is a black man that came to set liberty to the captives. That's Isaiah 61, verse 1. Who needs saving? Who needs liberty? Does the French need liberty? Does America need liberty? Who is oppressed? Who is getting brutalized in the streets? Who is getting gunned down when you know categorically and statistically they committed no crime? You're being persecuted over a traffic violation. You're being murdered and slaughtered. Ask Sandra Bland, was she free? Ask Trayvon Martin, was he free? Ask George Floyd. A lot of people talk about that they're woke. You're fake woke. The scripture says, awake to righteousness and sin not. Awake to righteousness, awake to who you are. Who were you prior to slavery? Who were you prior to colonization? These answers and more can be seen as we listen to the Forefront Radio, where you will find out the truth in regards to your true nationality. Yes, when you read about the Bible, when it says, my skin is black, it's talking about you. When you read Song of Solomon, when it says, look not upon me because I am black, it's talking about you. When it comes to the greatest man that walked on the face of the earth, Jesus the Christ, died a black man's death. Died through crucifixion, lynched on a tree. Hair like wool, feet like brass burned in a furnace. Who could this be talking about? This is talking about you, your people, the lost tribes of Israel. You are listening to the Forefront Radio. I'm your host, Afio Levi. We are going to have a great interview with Pierre Andre. So we're going to go ahead and call him just a bit and have a quick discussion with him. We appreciate all the listeners.
Hello?
Shalom, shalom, Pierre. How you doing? This is Levi with the Forefront Radio. How you doing?
Good. Shalom. Peace. I'm good.
Awesome, phenomenal. So I want to welcome you to the Forefront Radio. The call is recorded. We're going to have it out there for the listening audience to listen in. So tell us about yourself, Pierre, and what do you have to offer to the Black diaspora?
Yes. So I made sure I wrote down some notes for myself. So if we take it back a little bit about myself to the beginning, I went to traditional schools, classically trained as a licensed mental health professional and social work. And recently, everything aligned through prayer and the blessings of the Most High that I could step away from that because the last few years have been very difficult because of my walk and relationship and the things that he's been revealing to me. I realized that this system and even my training ultimately wasn't really I wasn't really properly equipped to help people. That's what I felt my calling was. And when I say not properly equipped, I was being pushed to, according to my license, and that's why they gave it to me, the things that I've learned and how I've helped people in the natural health world, I could not implement. Even with children that look like myself and a lot of my clients, mostly the boys, the struggles I saw, especially around the medication. And so that was one of the things that I prayed a lot about to be able to leave because one of the things I would do, I could sneak it in and tell and try to encourage parents to look at stuff and say, hey, somebody mentioned this to me or something, but it felt disingenuous because I couldn't honestly just flat out tell them, listen, this stuff is poison and I can show you the proof. That's the sort of stuff where they could pull my license from the
Wow, elaborate on that. So you're telling me that while you had services that you offered, they restricted you in offering that due to the fact that they wanted to push their own chemical
Yes,
imbalances? Okay, go ahead.
that's right. That's a universal thing, not just unique to me. And I realized that no, and I can say this unequivocally. It might sound very provocative, but none of the none of the institutions really know how to cater to the straight black male in his right mind. We're at the bottom of every category, and it's purposely so. For example, with suicide, the only demographic that leaves the black male is the Caucasian male, year in and year out. And I looked into it. My universal, it's across the board with my license. That would be grounds for me to get my license pulled. Even though I can show through medical literature and all of these things, it's understood the reason they give you a license is so they can take it from you. I must play ball and encourage people to look at psychotropics, even though it's devastating them. All of the people who struggle the most always on multiple psychotropic medications, always, in my experience. And so that's why it felt good to be able to ultimately leave. And one thing I would share for the listeners to look into this is look up the film Letters from Generation RX and the film Generation RX, and it talks about that. There's Senate testimony. When you look at these things, you'll realize about, we know the world is in the hands of the wicked one. And so there's just a lot of people blinded. But if you're seeking for truth, as the scriptures say, you'll find it. And the documentation is littered, brother. It is littered out there, what is available to support the deep feelings that we know that. That's why they always say we're the most resistant to treatment. I believe the Most High put that in our spirit because we know it's not for us. How can you love me so much, but you do all these wicked things to me, but now in my suffering, the thing you're going to offer me will alleviate me. It would be consistent. If you want to hurt me, whatever you offer me, you're still going to look to hurt me, with your said answer.
Definitely. And a lot of our listeners are familiar with things such as medical apartheid, the
Hmm.
Tuskegee syphilis experiments, and other factors that play a role in how they willfully try to, cause harm to Black bodies. Yeah. So elaborate, on how you transitioned from going into studying and the uses of psychotropic medications to now
Yeah.
switching over and saying, hey, there's an alternative that we could do to help the people.
So for the last, that takes me a little bit back. One quick point as I answer this question. It was recently announced in the last couple months where they admitted the depression thing is not this SSRIs, but they're still saying to take the medication. They've unequivocally admitted in their own journals. Prestigious University, Oxford, has admitted that they can't prove with their so-called science that the depression people are experiencing are from drugs. When you look in the medical literature, though, inflammation and other things play a role, but we could discuss that. But I just wanted to put that out there that it is well documented. They've officially announced it, but they won't put it on TV. So if we go back to me and how I got to this point, I've been looking at the natural health stuff on and off for several years. My background, my mom's heritage and my dad's heritage is from Haiti. So one of the things that I recall my mom always used to do is what's called rig muscati, castor oil. It's amazing. You just warm it up. My mom used to warm it up, and for any of our ailments, she would use it on us. And so when I was having my spiritual struggles, as someone who was very, very, how can I say this? I cursed. That's the best way I can say. I was definitely an atheist. I was one of your science people, hardcore. There's no God. The Bible is bunk, so on and so forth. And so the irony is when the Most High allowed me to suffer the things I was suffering by my choice, my own doing, it was that was the opportunity where I literally was suicidal, brother. And I dropped to my knees and I called out and I said, enough, you win. If you're real, because I don't know what I'm doing. I got this education, I got these degrees, but I knew that I couldn't go and get help from these people. I knew that medications wasn't going to help me. It was in my heart. Most High let me know. Like, you see the little things you're looking at, they don't have no answers for you. And so fast forward, that's how I was able to be in contact with my former teacher and the things that he was teaching me. I kept studying natural health, kept praying about it, kept praying about the opportunity to do this work full time. And I transitioned as of last year because part of what happened is my wife was able to get a good promotion with the things she does in the marketing world, and so it totally opened me up. I felt like this was the prayer where the Most High said, "Listen, this is going to be your opportunity to fly solo." And so I've been on Instagram. I'm posting certain things. All of my reels, everything is about solutions. I think one of the things our people get scared, and people in general, when you show them how bad a certain issue is, but our Father is able. He's left answers for us to alleviate our suffering. And so, to me, that's sort of like my gospel that I'm bringing the good news in terms of how He's using me. The things that are afflicting us, there's so much things that we can do to help ourselves, and I truly believe it's with His grace why I have this opportunity. And I'm trying not to spoil it, honestly, because part of the journey when I was suicidal and He healed me and He let me know, like, son, you forgiven, but now you got to let me use you. I made that commitment that I would be able to be accountable for the gifts that He's given me, because some of the things that I've discovered and that I'm able to do with people, I believe is by the Holy Spirit. I always pray before I work with someone, and I always ask, like, listen, pretend I haven't studied all this stuff I studied. Let you be involved in this whole process. Point me in the direction of the things I need to do, and that's how I'm able to get people results.
Wow. Before you continue, I just want to elaborate on what you just mentioned earlier, because everything you're saying is significant to our community, because a lot of the ails that we suffer from are from spiritual forces. And you
Hmm.
mentioned the Louis Muscati, and I'm happy that you mentioned that. For those that are not familiar with that, that's castor oil. So in ancient Israelite traditions, as well as in the diaspora, we knew within our spirit to anoint one another with oil, and you could find that in the scriptures. And I just want to touch that briefly. In Mark chapter 6, verse 13, it says, "And they cast out many devils and anointed with oil many that were sick and healed them." And it's amazing to me that you mentioned that, because all along our ancestors knew, hey, if somebody was sick, put some oil on them, put some castor oil on them, rub them down, pray over them, things of that nature. But here we come to the West, and the European powers are like, no, don't do that. That's bad. That's witchcraft. That's voodoo. But it's like, no, it's not. It's biblical. It's 100% biblical. And then I had one more scripture that touches on what you just said. In the book of James, it says, "Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord." So that's heavy what you're saying, because that's exactly what our ancestors did in the island of Haiti, Barbados, Bahamas, Trinidad, all of that place where we scattered. We taught the people the importance of praying over the person, anointing them with oil and everything like that. And that's amazing that you share that. And do elaborate a little bit more on your testimony of how you came out of those negative spiritual thoughts, and how these medications had no type of, they just made you numb. There was no type of alleviation. And the only thing that changed that was when you came to the Most High.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, the funny thing is, because I had, and I talked about this in my EMF talk, my parents, raised us up in the church. But because of the modern school system, aka the modern school system, and I had a piece of paper and letters behind my name, I became puffed up. And plus too, I didn't really want to be accountable. And this is one of the things that I would share for all the listeners. Like, one of the greatest things when the Most High is dealing with you is forcing you to be accountable and forcing you to take the correction. We don't like the correction, and I needed it in a big way. I denied him. As I said, I believed up until a point that my degrees or whatever have you would be suffice for the spiritual battles and struggles and things that I was involved in, the poor choices, a lot of foolishness I was involved in, lots of drinking and things like of that nature, just basically to mask that deep down emptiness that only he can fill. And it's in the scriptures. That's one of the top things I would say to the people listening to this. Even in their own medical literature, it confirms the scriptures. Everyone with a spiritual foundation that believes in the Most High or even a concept of God has higher levels of psychological functions, higher levels of physical function. Because just that in itself is like, the watch is meant to be connected to the watchmaker. It's intricate. And so for me, as I was suffering the things I was suffering, finally, I realized that I'll be honest, I was at a point where I was pretty suicidal. I made a lot of horrible decisions. And I basically got my behind handed to me with the situation that happened with a young lady I was dealing with. Left me totally embarrassed. Again, freshly, as I said, I was a very puffed up young man, full of ego. You couldn't tell me nothing. And there I was. I lost the apartment, lots of money, lots and lots of just pure embarrassment. And so that had me in a state of being suicidal. And here I was, looked at my degrees, and knowing I already had tickled the plate and looked at some of these things with the drugs, I knew there was no answer there. And it was just like something in my spirit said, why are you talking to these people? Won't you talk to me? You denied me. Have you really reached out to me? Have you searched the scriptures about how I deal with people, even though you were raised in the church and whatnot? And so I said, you know what? I'll go back, because I was desperate. In all honesty, my ego still was like, nah, this not going to work. But part of it was like, oh, I'm going to prove this, because I'm an atheist and it's all about science. Here I am. I'm gonna pray like a true prayer, on my knees, crying, so on and so forth. And it was just like, damn, it's like, you need to get on this plane and remember that thing you bought. Talk to this lady. Go out and see this gentleman. And so I did it. I just said, okay, fine. And from when the things he was teaching me, he believed in the scriptures as well. And the things that the Most High had blessed him with, and I'm basically carrying on his legacy. My life was never the same. I was walking through the airport, brother, crying in tears. And people were looking at me like, you're okay. And it was because I felt his spirit. And I always tell people, I don't believe in the Most High. I know there is the Most High. And it's through actual experience. Like other people might not have had that tangible experience, but the things that I've personally experienced and felt, and I just felt like he hugged me. I was like, this is it. It's gonna be okay. And I called my mom and we cried, and she was joyful because, of course, as the scriptures say, train up a child in the way they should go, they shall not depart from it. I departed, but I returned. And so it came full circle, and since that day, that's part of what I've been trying to do. Now, there's still been ups and downs, but it's like now I've been all in with what happened with my niece, how these people almost killed her. And they almost killed my mom, too. Now, the Most High has, I feel like he's taking the gloves off, and he's like, you got to do this. Full time, your teacher is no longer here. You got to rely on me more than ever. You saw what these people did to your family, and you see what they're doing to other people. So you have a responsibility to use what it's one of the things my teacher taught me as well. Like the things the Most High gives us is not ours. We're supposed to serve, just as Christ, as the Messiah taught. He was all about service, and I really see that, and I'm humbled to be able to do the things I'm doing.
So you mentioned your mentor that passed and how he inspired you. So now you feel like
Mhm.
you have a mission to go forth and help the people. So what would you say is your mission now that you've came to that realization?
My mission is to use the gifts to get the word out that as we are in this captivity, that we can heal. We have hope. We have comfort in the things of the Heavenly Father. We talked about the anointing of oils. You can go back in the scriptures. The whole concept of aromatherapy, a lot of our people don't know. Certain essential oils, when you sniff them, it hits what's called the olfactory bulb in the brain, and that's how we can change physiological things in the body. Certain scents are very stimulating. There's scents that's healing. This is all of the Most High stuff, and that's why they try to call it bunk. People could go on YouTube and look up a quick search, and I'm not promoting the company or anything, but they did it based on this company, where in the hospital they would spew out certain blends of essential oils, and the staff and all of the patients reported significant changes for the better in their physiology. That's just the power of simple smells and the plants for the things that the Most High has put here. So that's my mission for those who are seeking to show them, like, look, He healed me. There's a way out. There's things we can do for our diabetes and all this stuff that's very economical and very safe, and it's still in alignment with His calling for us. He didn't abandon us. We abandoned Him.
That's amazing that you say that because many of these nations already know this information because they stole it from our ancestors, way back when,
Mm-hmm.
because they read about the cinnamons and the odors and the fragrances, the ointments, the frankincense, the myrrh, all of that is all in the Bible. So I'm
Frank, you
glad that
mentioned
you.
you mentioned
Mhm.
so you mentioned fragrances. Before I forget, that's one of the top things when you combine it with curcumin, turmeric. You go into their own medical literature of science. It's profound for cancer. It's profound for joint issues. It's profound for so many things. And faith, again, if you overuse it, you waste it. If you take too many of their pills, they'll kill you.
Facts, definitely. Y'all hear that, ladies and gentlemen? So you better get that frankincense oil or spices, stocktay, onycha, galbanum, all of these different sweet spices and pure frankincense like Moses did back in the day. So, hey, I'm glad that I hit you up because uh, what you mentioned about your testimony and transition and like spark something in me because I'm thinking about moments where I personally went through negative thoughts and the only alleviation was going to the Most High and praying. So I'm glad you shared that story. You know, So, what is it that you do for the people? I saw that you sent me a video with a
Mhm.
lot of different information that was in the video. So, kind of touch on that briefly. You had like some sort of seminar that you were holding. Talk about that briefly.
Yeah. So recently, and I have a clear version actually of it I can share with you. So recently, I'm in a local group here in the city I live in Texas, and it's catered around a lot of health focused stuff. And they had actually, based on the feedback input I was given about certain subjects, they realized that I probably would be best equipped to discuss the whole electromagnetics, the mandate versus what the Most High has made is called the Schumann resonance, very healing. So besides prayer, which we should be doing without ceasing, as the word says, if you can get out into the green pasture as much as possible, wherever there's grass, just putting your feet where there's actual grass and soil, that's a way to help heal your body because the grass and the earth is naturally putting something out that is very beneficial for you. But the stuff that we've made, like our Wi-Fi and things like that, is basically stealing from us and very harmful. And so I did some education around that, and more importantly, discussed solutions for people. A lot of the substances, key substances the Most High has put out here for us, real food-based vitamin C, resveratrol, which is found in the seed the grape seed. There's certain things that will protect our cells. And then there's even technologies. And when I talk about the blessing of the Holy Spirit, He allowed me to learn and create the way my teacher used to create, where I've created things so that, and I share with people, and that's what I use. But also, there's other companies that I've vetted, and their stuff is legitimate. And so I go by the title of a stress diplomat. People can look into the American Institute of Stress and why I chose that title and I don't use my formal LMSW title anymore. As I mentioned with the drugs and things, I have people sign a waiver so that legally for the powers that be, I can work with people under the guise of education. But I really teach about stress and what it's doing to us and how it's the number one toxin. And it's tied to the spiritual aspect of things, right? The physical toxins our body knows how to deal with, but our bodies go into significant distress and conflict based on our negative emotions, based on, I'll give you an example, one thing that I learned. When we curse, if we curse, even if we curse at someone else, or if we curse at the Most High, we actually weaken our life force. We are stealing from our own temple. I kid you not. He's built in a lot of the consequences for some of the things when we make certain choices. And so, being what I've learned about how devastating stress is, and if you think of the captivity we're in here, who else would know well about stress than our people? You know, whether we're being conscious or unconscious about it, how things have been set up, from the explicit things that's done to us versus the implicit things. And so, besides like the prayer and getting into the scriptures, as I said, there are the other physical things that He's littered the earth with. That if we use these things, we can have a high state of health, and that's what I want to see for my people. Ultimately, like because why everybody else is comfortable advocating for their own, and for us, unfortunately, it's sort of like a problem when we want to try to, sort of close ranks and focus on us. Everybody
Right.
feels the right to be involved.
That's right. And I like what you mentioned because that's going into death and life, being in the power of the tongue and what we speak has an impact. I
Hmm.
appreciate you sharing that. I'm considering in my mind while you were speaking about the various ailments that we suffer from as a nation of people. You know, high blood pressure, diabetes, gout,
Hmm.
and all these different things. What is what steps would you promote for our people to deal with these ailments to be proactive in the healing process?
Oh, absolutely. This is now we're gonna have some real fun. Keep it real simple. First and foremost, there's some things we can all be doing if we have zero budget, right? Let's say your finances are stressed. One of the ways you can add to your health is you subtract certain things. We must cut the sugar, my people. Cut that white sugar out. We got to cut the booze down. We have to start eating more and more of the real foods. It's as simple as that. You know, if it's bagged up, stay away from it. The chips, all of these things, you must cut them. The sugar is one of the biggest stressors. One of the reasons why we have so much diabetes is our pancreas is actually what produces the insulin, and it's overloaded. But now, if you have a little bit of a budget, this is cheap. You get yourself some organic Ceylon cinnamon, Ceylon, Ceylon cinnamon. Go look into the research around that. It is extremely beneficial for your pancreas and your brain. As part of what's happening with the diabetes, our brains are burning up and shrinking because of all of the sugar. And Ceylon cinnamon is one of those things that's very economical and extremely beneficial to help our pancreas. So that's one of the ways we tackle diabetes. Now, tied into that is I want people to take a look at this. It's about 47 minutes long or so. If you do COVID and vitamin D on YouTube, there's a Caucasian doctor that gives a talk. Please take time to watch it because the second half of the talk is so relevant to our people. Everyone who was hit the hardest from COVID, even though they try to say racism and things, which partly it is because we're miseducated, vitamin D deficient. Our melanin prevents us from being able to take in as much UV radiation to produce vitamin D. That's why we were better equipped for us to be forced to be out in those fields. You understand there's a protective thing about the melanin, but now being deficient in it creates all sorts of health issues. It's a hormone, even though it's called vitamin D. It's tied to your immune system, your bone health, many cancers. You just do a quick Google search, look at that video on YouTube, and if you do vitamin D in African Americans, it will blow your mind, the research that's out there that your standard doctor does not discuss with you. And the best form is you want to get it from mushrooms. So either eat more mushrooms in your diet, particularly I believe it's the shiitake mushroom, or you could get a fermented supplement because you'll have the K2 as well. The next best form is basically they make it from sheep's wool, and it'll be D3 with K2. But you can profoundly impact and benefit your health by doing this. You could get your levels formally checked. We're going into the wintertime. That's part of why it's tied to depression, immunity, obesity, cancer, so many things. So that is something that I would say you definitely, especially because we're going in the wintertime now, you can't necessarily produce more from the sun. We naturally produce less. So you must get into the vitamin D game.
Do you think that's
Extremely
why
important.
so-called Haitian people make the dirigeon with the with the
Yeah,
rice with the mushrooms and all of that?
that's right. Listen, it's in there. And here's some good news now, right? Because they tell us our skin is a curse. Been doing some research. I'm always looking at things. What I discussed in my EMF talk, so-called black people, the darker hue people, we basically the electromagnetics don't poison us equally because of our darker hue. And if you look like our skin tone matches some mushrooms, we naturally have built-in radio protection from these man-made radiations. So we get poisoned a little slower. Universally, in general, that's true. Now, depending on your health issues, that might not be the case. But this is why, too, they've been studying many different aspects of melanin, of your darker skin, and it's tied to so many things. That's the number one reason why black don't crack, folks. The melanin has many, many properties that they're now releasing and being honest about. There's a video, I wish I would have saved it, where there's literally this two Caucasian billionaire gentlemen offering these two sisters money for the melanin. I kid you not. Now, if
I
he's going to
saw
offer
that. It
you
was
money,
on Instagram and then it disappeared.
Yeah. And so there's been other, I forgot, there was something else that popped up with it, but even with computers, there is certain unique properties. The Most High, and as a creator, as someone who's sovereign, the Most High, he doesn't deal in equality, folks. You know, it is what it is. He just does not. And if you think about, too, what Messiah suffered and how other people suffered, that's why I embrace this now. I embrace the affliction or whatever I go through because I know that as long as he's with me, it's okay. So that'd be one of my messages to people. It's in the scriptures, even in good time, in bad times, that's when we forget about him. That's when we should be praying more, asking him to be involved in the situation more. So the vitamin D, something else for people to look into, for my people who eat dairy and so-called black people, there's an enzyme called lactase. We do not produce it for the most part, and that's why dairy is so hard on us. So one thing I learned, if you take good digestive enzymes, you basically can safely have some dairy because the enzyme lactase that you don't have, you can buy in supplement form. And so if you must have your milk, you must have your cheese, you can make sure to take that enzyme and the body will be able to break it down and it not be such a significant issue. Now I want to transition. You mentioned high blood pressure. This is going to be something for some people they've never heard. High blood pressure is actually the body's adaptation to keep you alive. The Most High created the body. There's nothing, even all of our disease states, there's nothing that we are experiencing that is because the body doesn't know what it's doing. It makes adjustments to keep you alive. So if it thickens your blood to pump out more, to thicken the blood and that creates high blood pressure, you know why that is? That means your kidneys are probably under stress or your liver. I watched it with my mom. They almost killed her with a bottle of aspirin. I used his herbs, the various real supplements made of his products and oils, and got all of the swelling down in my mom's feet, and her kidney function is way back to normal. But they almost killed her with aspirin. One more thing. If you want the real aspirin, look into white willow bark, people. Get you some good white willow bark tea or get it as a powder. That is the most highest aspirin. Don't take my word for it. Just look this stuff up. It is right there. And so that's what I have my mom doing. It's great for aches and pains, totally safe, and it's cheap. But the high blood pressure, that's why cutting the sugar, getting your stress under control, that's why prayer is so important. Prayer can help turn your thick blood back liquid. And you're turning it over to the Most High Messiah. You understand? Salt, real salt. And I had just posted about this, and I'm going to do some more education for our people. We actually need the real salt. The fake stuff, stay away from, but the real salt your body actually needs for its bodily function. And so if you're drinking coffee, you're actually excreting minerals and things of that nature. So the real salt, really important for high blood pressure. And doing cleanses, taking the right stuff, cleaning your colon out. That's why colon cancer is such a major issue for us. There's some cheap, look into oxygen-based colon cleansers. You can take those or you go do a colonic, but if you take those, it's to help move along any excess waste out of the colons because things will sit and putrefy and make you sick. So again, your body's quote disease state is it responding and letting you know it needs help. It's trying to keep you alive. It's making adjustments and prioritizing things to keep you alive.
All praise to the Most High. What other
Yeah.
recommendations would you have? And also, before we close, please provide contact information for those that want to get in touch with you, your Instagram, email, stuff like that.
Couple other things. There's something called organic sulfur, MSM. It's cheap. You want to get a good kind. Organic MSM sulfur, really good for your joints and to help you with detoxification. The magnesium, before I forget, that's also tied to high blood pressure. The two forms for our people, L-threonate, really great for the brain and for things that when we're dealing with depression. Glycinate is great for high blood pressure. There's a whole bunch of other forms. Those are the top two that I've been using and that I've evaluated that I find the best. That's how you get results. The glycinate, you want to get you some magnesium glycinate, really calming to the whole body, especially if you're dealing with anxiety and being anxious. It safely helps the body be calm without poisoning you like the psychotropics. And the L-threonate is really, really great for the brain. Really good. If people want to get in contact with me, my website is pierre.com. My Instagram is not_my_rest. So NOT _my_rest. And people can contact me that way. And let me just see here. The last thing I would say too, and I almost forgot to mention, there's a specific form of antibiotics I want to warn our people about. They have a black box warning that they haven't pulled off the market. If you feel the need to take antibiotics, whatever you do, stay away from what's called fluoroquinolones. They are known to cause nerve damage. Do a Google search of people who are called Floxie, Flxie. They took one round of this stuff, some of them, and they've never gotten their lives back. Olive leaf extract and garlic and oregano oil are the most high natural antibiotics. So I would encourage people to go that route. But if you're really going to take antibiotics, just make sure you don't take these fluoroquinolones. They're literally the most dangerous. They have a black box warning, but they're still on the market.
All praises to the Most High. This is part one. I want to have a part two with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the recording for this one, and I'm going to call you. Do you have a good internet signal?
Yeah, I do.
I'm going to call you on the audio of the Instagram, and then we're going to do a part two because I want you to elaborate a little bit on what you mentioned earlier in the conversation about the psychotropic drugs. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Thank you for listening to The Forefront, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to end this recording, and we're going to start a new one with part two of the discussion. All right. Hey, my friend. You have just listened to The Forefront Radio. Please leave your comment and input about the show, what you like about the show, as well as any general feedback on ways to improve. We need your help to acquire new equipment to implement studio quality video and audio to our friends. Contribute as little as $4.99. It's only worth a cup of coffee. Then we can produce documentaries, more episodes, and great info for the diaspora. Go to Cash App and enter APHIELLEVI to donate to the Forefront Radio to cover our advertising costs and reach more people. Catch our next episode on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Anchor.fm/The Forefront. Always remember, the truth shall liberate the mind. Peace to the heirs of promise and the heritage of the scattered 12 tribes. Hey, my friend. You have just listened to The Forefront Radio. Please leave your comment and input about the show, what you like about the show, as well as any general feedback on ways to improve. We need your help to acquire new equipment to implement studio quality video and audio to our friends. Contribute as little as $4.99. It's only worth a cup of coffee. Then we can produce documentaries, more episodes, and great info for the diaspora. Go to Cash App and enter APHIELLEVI to donate to the Forefront Radio to cover our advertising costs and reach more people. Catch our next episode on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Anchor.fm/The Forefront. Always remember, the truth shall liberate the mind. Peace to the heirs of promise and the heritage of the scattered 12 tribes.